Welcome to Dave and Dom Demystify, a FinTech Futures podcast, helping make sense of the world of FinTech and digital finance. Please sit back and listen as the two Ds take a subject and discuss it to make it clearer and easier to understand.
Welcome everybody to the Dave and Dom Demystify show. This week actually it's just Dom, but I do have a very esteemed guest. It is Mr. Mohammad Alblooshi, who is the CEO of the DIFC Innovation Hub. Welcome, Mohammad. I have to say that I spent 2 days at the conference that you arranged, and my immediate reaction was there is a real sense of urgency, there's excitement, there's commitment, and actually there was a lot of innovation from when I looked into the depths of stuff, right? But before I get too carried away about the conference, please can you introduce yourself and just give us a bit about your background and tell us about what you do in the DIFC.
Sure. So I'm Mohammad Alblooshi. I run the DIFC Innovation Hub, which DIFC, of course, stands for Dubai International Financial Center. And I run its innovation ecosystem, which essentially is Dubai's fintech ecosystem. Today, we stand at about 1,000 plus fintech innovation startups. And this has been a journey which we started 7 years ago. And within 7 years, we have grown significantly. I still remember the date when we started with an office space of 3,000 square feet. And today, the Innovation Hub spans over more than 300,000 square feet. And it's the largest of its kind in the entire region as a hub for startup. And I think globally pretty unique as a hub dedicated to financial technology startups. Very proud to be part of this entity, and I've been part of it from day one, and it's exciting.
Brilliant. Can you tell me a little bit about the landscape of fintech? I mean, is it much more focused towards any one particular area? Do you include things like AI as part of the fintech space?
Yeah, so I think it's been a very interesting journey for us. So when we started looking at fintech, I think 2015, 2016, crowdfunding was just becoming a theme in our part of the world. And there weren't any regs either on crowdfunding or any other, let's say, fintech space. And I think given how progressive the Dubai government is or the ecosystem is, we jumped on it and we started working with it. And there's a company right next door called Beehive. This was the first company crowdfunding platform that we worked with to build our regs around crowdfunding, and we regulated the entity. And I think since then, our regulator, the DFSA, has been quite progressive. They came up with a regulatory sandbox, which is focused on the new concepts or the new technologies being used in the financial services space, be it DLT, be it AI. And again, DFSA and ourselves, we're looking at AI and its use cases within the financial services sector. I think from our perspective, we, of course, keep an eye on each and every technology, even metaverse, for example. We look at it, and there were, so with some of our banks, we were quite keen on exploring what metaverse means for the banking ecosystem. So as enablers, as the government of Dubai, we want to make sure we're at the forefront of any changes in the financial landscape, any technological advancements. We want to make sure we have the right regulatory and legal frameworks available for these companies so they can be plugged into the existing financial institutions or financial services, or also the new entrants that kind of leverage these technologies and provide financial services.
Your scope is actually much broader than the UAE. I assumed because it was called the Dubai Financial Center, then it was fairly limited in scope. But actually, it's not even just the UAE; it's the MENA region, right, which is Middle East and North Africa. I mean, how do you span that reach, like from here? And what is the broader ecosystem outside of Dubai like?
It's very interesting. It takes me back to when we actually started designing or looking into building a financial center in the city of Dubai. And the reason was, if you look at this region, Middle East and North African region, it's a vibrant region. And I think in 03, 04, there wasn't any international financial center in this part of the world. And that's where Dubai kind of saw an opportunity. They said, fine, let's develop a financial center that is built on international standards, and that could be a hub for everyone that is looking into entering the Middle East and North African markets. And hence we decided to create a financial center that is based on English common law and has its own independent financial regulator And also it has its own court system. So we're technically a city within a city that is designed to attract global financial institutions that want to expand into the Middle East and North African markets. And I'm really proud that over the last 20 years, most of the top names in the financial services world have expanded into the Middle East and North Africa markets through the DIFC. And on the conventional side of the business, and we see the same on the fintech side of the business as well.
I mean, it's not just the financial services, is it? It's like all of the top technology players are here as well. But in terms of the DIFC themselves, I mean, how are they driving like the fintech community? What initiatives are you doing to encourage more fintechs to be created here and to help them to be successful?
Yeah, so I think when we started looking at fintech in 16, 17, one thing that we had to wrap our heads around was fintech is very different to conventional banking. We were designed initially for traditional financial institutions. Our regs, our infrastructure was designed around that. And now we had a clientele or a new breed of community that we wanted to attract into the center. And we had to understand, and we ourselves had to first understand and then advocate and educate internally that these guys have to be treated very differently compared to traditional financial institutions, because most of these guys are early stage startups, of course, not well financed at their early stages. So how do we make sure we can plug them into the ecosystem, regulate them, and help them scale? And I think that's where we realized when it comes to fintech, we have to do much more hand-holding compared to traditional financial institutions. I think for financial institutions, we had to make sure that we have the right infrastructure, we have the right regs and laws, and I think that made life pretty easy for them. But I think for this segment, we had to do much more. We had to look at how do we give them the right regulatory frameworks and the regulatory support. So we had to create our own regulatory sandbox and work with them hand in hand to make sure we make it as easy as possible, of course, for these guys from a regulatory perspective. Also in terms of, I think, setting up operations. Because these guys, I remember the days, I mean, startups used to come and tell us, oh, we don't even want offices. We'd work out from coffee shops. And we would tell them, no, that's not possible. But we would create offices for you guys that look and feel like coffee shops. So I think we did that. So we brought the co-working space concept purely so we can cater to this clientele. And then I think the third thing was, we also need access to capital. And then we were like, okay, what do we do about that? And I think two things we were like, one is we created our own fintech fund through which we invest into these startups. But I always say that one fund wouldn't invest in 1,000 startups. So how do we enable or attract more capital for these startups through VCs, through family offices, angel investors? How do we build that community so there's more capital available for these startups to attract and prevail? And then also, how do we make sure there is access to market through accelerator programs, through mentorship, and also, I think, talent? How do we, because now we had to create a new pool of talent within the financial center, which is focused on tech rather than purely financial services. So I think a lot of initiatives that we have gone through, and continuously we keep introducing new initiatives. Recently, we've done a lot of work around venture building, around AI, just to enable these new concepts so companies can come and set up over here and prepare.
For me, fintech goes back as far as, well, since the beginning of the technology, right? But I guess the real boom of fintech is when products got enabled through the internet. So maybe going back as maybe 96 or so, right? But I guess one of the big drivers in Europe and the UK has been open banking. That was the biggest driver that started about, I guess the white paper came out in 2013, and then the regulator enforced it 2016, and we started to see some traction with real fintechs getting access to the data in 2019. But by then, the fintech investment had ballooned, and we've already gone through a kind of peak of fintech hype and investment. And then last year, we saw a bit of a drop. But from what I experienced yesterday at the summit, it seems like you're still at this growth stage. Also, from what I hear from the different company that I spoke to, your start period was about 2016, 2017. Like, how much of that was purposeful, like a later start, rather than trying to jump on the bandwagon at the same time? You know, it's like, why didn't you start earlier or did you purposely wait to see how things went in Europe with open banking before making your own play?
I think so. I think for right or wrong reasons, I would say we're probably a bit late. Not just us, I think the entire region saw the emergence of fintech, includes everybody else in the region, probably 16, 17, and some of the markets came even later. So, and the same goes for some of the other industries as well. They were a bit late, but then again, when it kicks off, it goes very quickly. And I still tell people that we are at very early stages, because I usually, when I do the comparison with UK or US, and you have companies that are giants, so and then the number of unicorns that exist in those markets. And we've just had our first 2 unicorns, and that actually tells you how much more can happen from these markets. And we're seeing it. And I remember, I think in 2018, 2019, when I used to go to UK or US, and I would see those funding rounds of tens and let's say $20 million, $30 million rounds, I would envy those companies. And whereas our companies could hardly raise $500,000 that time. But I think things have changed over 2020, 21, 22. Funding really surged in our part of the world. It's also because a lot of people got to know about the segment, about the asset class, and started looking at it. There's a lot of family wealth in the region. Families started looking at it and attracted a lot of capital. I think an industry only prevails when there is investment in it. So I think at the moment it started attracting serious capital, if I may say. It just grew at no pace.
So we're sitting in a building which has been created by the DIFC for innovation, and I'm seeing some very attractive workspaces. I have to say, I'm almost envious that I'm done 3 startups, sold them, and I said to my wife I'd never do another one. But actually coming here, I'm kind of like, oh, maybe there is a 4th one in me. I don't know. But what are the other initiatives that you've done to foster or to attract more fintechs to start here? I mean, clearly having a workspace like this is phenomenal. It's just a shame it's a podcast, because I'd love to show people the quality of this. I mean, yes, we were first, I guess, early in London with places like Level 42. Even the WeWork offices look great, but they don't look like this. And I love the fact that you've got very casual spaces for like freelancers, as well as smaller kind of offices for startups. And then you've actually got even room for scale-ups, right? So you've looked at the whole life cycle, not just one aspect. I love the thinking. It's much broader, much more strategic. What else have you done that I have not seen?
I think I really like you noticed, because when we were thinking about the space, we said we want a place where you have very early stage startups, guys, 2 or 3 guys trying to create this startup. They usually operate from a shared space. And then you have somebody that has just probably raised $1 million, $2 million and has a few more people. And then next to them, you want to have scale ups that have, let's say, a sizable team and they have raised proper money, and also unicorns and corporates. And the reason we wanted everyone under one roof, so they can, of course, be inspired by each other. There's a lot of cross-sell. And at lunch hours, you would see most of the CEOs would interact with each other, and employees of these companies would interact with each other. I think that the campus feeling was very important to us, that we create a fintech campus of sorts. I think that has happened. I think going back to your question or your point regarding what else we've done, one of the key things was how do we make sure that their operating cost is low? And I think for fintech in particular, made sure that we make it as easy as possible for these guys to operate in their early days. So their licensing cost, their real estate cost is significantly subsidized, just to make sure we help and support them as they grow up. And again, we've come up with curated licensing regimes. We've looked at mentoring. We've looked at the ecosystem development is very important. How do we make sure that people who come to the Innovation Hub, they don't just see real estate space, they really see the value in an ecosystem, making sure there's capital available for them, making sure there is access to market. There are corporates as well. That's a very important piece, because a lot of these companies either need corporates to plug their technology with the corporates or banks in particular, or they want to provide their technology to these financial services as on a SaaS model. So I think from our perspective, we continuously keep looking at what an ecosystem requires and what else can we plug into it. We also have a focus on the education side. How can we make sure that it also becomes a hub to attract and develop talent? We have something called the DIFC Academy, through which we run multiple courses on the future of finance.
So you and I also had a brief chat earlier on at the beginning of the week. And one of the things that you told me was the commitment actually from like government to you guys and then to the industry and how well it was all interconnected. What I've seen, I guess, is in other markets, the regulators are, I don't want to say barriers, right? But it feels like a barrier to entry. But actually, they're like, maybe overprotective is the better way of putting it. But here, it seems like the regulators are working hand in hand, both with industry and government, to ensure that the fintech market grows, but safely. I mean, for me, that was a bit of an eye-opener to see that actually, like even setting up a company, it's done properly with the proper controls and the KYC, but it can be done in minutes online. And so for me, it was like very encouraging to see and hear from not only from yourself at the beginning of the week, but throughout the week, I spoke to several companies and they all reiterated this message that the country was serious about fintech. They see it as a major driver for growth. And there's a lot of excitement and they're seeing some of the returns from this investment already. I mean, is that how you feel genuinely?
Definitely. I think the beauty of Dubai and the UAE is we've got a top-down approach. I think in about 2014, the government made it clear that we're going to take innovation serious, and which kind of made it the responsibility of each and every government entity to push innovation in their respective sectors. Given we are responsible for the financial services sector, it is our responsibility to push financial innovation. So it's not a choice. We have to do. And I think for the right reasons. And today, if you look at what the Innovation Hub has done for us in terms of growth, it's one of our fastest growing sectors in terms of number of companies that come to the DIFC, but also in terms of job creation. We've had, as mentioned, from 3,000 to we've increased 300,000 square feet. So I think that bet has paid off very clearly. And I think we're very bullish that in the future, it's going to play an even bigger role. And what we need to make sure, we want to be agile. We want to make sure we have the right infrastructure in place. We want to make sure that it's really as easy as possible for people to come and operate and grow their businesses from Dubai.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the relationship, I guess, or whether it's competition or not, but we were at Dubai Internet City this afternoon and Techcom, who is the leasehold provider of a similar kind of co-working spaces for tech companies. But it was amazing that they not only provide you the space to work within, but they can also facilitate the process of setting up the company and helping individuals to find the right talent, etc. I mean, it all seems to be very connected. Whereas, I guess if you came to the UK then, and I've done 3 startups, as you know, each time I've had to find an office. I've had to do that myself. I've had to go and find a bank account, do that myself. I have to register the company myself. Yes, I can pay somebody, but it's a different somebody else. And already my to-do list is like 20 long, whereas literally I was looking at what was happening in the Internet City, and literally you can speak to one person and be set up within days. And in the UK, it takes a month, really.
All these institutions, be it us, be it Internet City, be it other institutions that have been set up purely for this reason, which is to enable and make it as easy as possible for companies to come and set up shop. So the moment you get in touch with anyone at the DIFC, everything should be sorted. They would process your legal entity, they would sort out your office space, your immigration, visa-related processes, bank accounts. At times we will also start helping people in terms of living. I think we tell them where to live and where not to live. I think that's the beauty of Dubai. Making sure that we're efficient, making sure we make it as easy as possible.
I mean, would you say like Internet City is a competitor in terms of trying to drive startups, or?
I wouldn't say. I think if you look at UAE, there are multiple different nodes when it comes to startups. And I think in the IFC, we're the financial center, and this is the fintech ecosystem. So I think predominantly most of the fintech companies are based over here. I think Internet City is a bit more broader, and I think they look at areas that probably we're not focused on. I think our sector revolves around financial services and services that revolve around financial.
Brilliant. What are the ambitions for DIFC? I mean, like, what do you think of the landscape will be like in 5 or 10 years' time? And what are your bigger goals here?
I can speak about my goals. As the DIFC Innovation Hub, we want to make sure we're the best globally. As a fintech hub, as a startup hub, we're quite ambitious. I think for the right reasons. We've seen what the city of Dubai has to offer and what it can offer, and the role that it can play for startups, for fintech in particular. We've got some of the best regulators. We've got an amazing ecosystem, a thriving ecosystem, and we want to be amongst the top, if not the top player in the fintech ecosystem landscape.
Okay, so what does that mean? Is that like more unicorns, more investment, best talent, bigger companies?
From my perspective, and I tell them, we want to be leading the future of finance, which means, of course, most number of unicorns being produced out of Dubai, out of the center, a lot of early stage startups and new initiatives, new concepts, also global unicorns, the big unicorns that are elsewhere in the world, them expanding into the Middle East and North Africa markets, leveraging the IFC and leveraging our ecosystem. And when we look at future finance, we also look at the big tech, as now all the big tech are also entering financial services. We want to make sure that they also use the DIFC Innovation Hub as a platform to provide, financial services or fintech services. We're also using the DIFC Innovation Hub to be a catalyst for conventional institutions. I usually say, what is the Emerson BD going to look like 20 years from now? And how can we help them with this digital revolution as well? So the role that we play in that. So we want to be the platform, the ecosystem that drives financial innovation overall.
I'm almost out of time on the interview, but do you have any kind of like final thoughts and things like you might want to share with a broader audience on the fintech side?
Well, I think for the global audience, I would urge them to look into the entire region. I think the region is extremely interesting, and I think look at what's happening fintech ecosystem over here. There's a lot of demand. There's a lot of course, the market's keen on looking at investments as well. This is one of the best locations when it comes to attracting talent, and there's all kind of support that you need in Dubai, in the IFC. And if you haven't been to Dubai, the IFC, we'd call upon your audience to look it up and come and meet us.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're a very busy guy. You've been very active at the conference as well. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you for your honesty and openness in discussing fintech here in the region.
Thank you for tuning in to Dave and Dharm Demystify. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and tune in next time as we take another topic and demystify it.